Hey guys, welcome back to World of Warships. Today we're taking a look at the coal cruisers. Finally, I'm going to give you my list, my order in which I would get these ships in, and we're going to compare them directly against one another. I've gone through and done a dedicated video on each of these ships I'm going to talk about, so I'm not going to get into as much specific detail on each one, but I will compare them. And then, of course, I'm going to give you the order in which I personally would like to get each one of these ships. In the comments below, give your own list. I'm sure it's going to be great for people looking to get some of these ships to learn a little bit more about what different community members like as well. As this is an opinion piece, of course. This is just what I personally would like to get first. And to start things off, I don't think it's much surprise, but I think Carnot is probably the worst version of the high-tier coal cruisers. I think this is just a really unfortunate ship these days and probably not worth getting at all. The main problems with this ship not only are that it's a battle cruiser, and that's going to be a personal preference of mine that I just dislike battle cruisers in general in this game, and you might enjoy them, but I still think this is going to be the worst one because this ship gives up a lot for being a battle cruiser. This ship has a long reload. This ship has a 25-second reload base as a battle cruiser, and you of course get yourself 10 guns, where something like an Agir gets 9 guns but a 20-second reload alongside Azuma, and that is typically what you see out of battle cruisers at this tier, is around a 20-second reload. This one's got 25-second reload. Now it might get something in return. Well, no, it's got standard AP shells, less alpha than the Agir, and the HE is fine, but it's not really all that impressive when you compare it to Azuma or even Yoshino. I know that's a tier higher, but it means this ship is not good when it comes to the main guns. The range is also not amazing. We do have a lot of HP though, which is very nice to have, as this is a large ship with not the best armor. You do have 36 mil deck armor, but it doesn't really come into play all that often as your superstructure is gigantic here. So this is a ship that's going to take a lot of damage, so at least you have the HP pool to deal with it. The other issue is your turret angles. Your firing angles are very poor, so you're going to be showing a lot of broadside to shoot all of your guns. At least you don't have a very fast reload, so you can stay angled most of the time. I suppose that's a positive. But lots of overmatch here, and then your Citadel is a waterline one, I believe. So, you know, you're not going to take as many Citadels as if it was way up above. You know, you can see there's a bit of a line here on the hull of the ship. Fortunately, that is not your Citadel. It is below, or at least waterline. And there's a bit of turtle back here, although it's only 20 millimeters, so battleships will just overmatch through that. Just keep in mind. So armor-wise, not great either. This ship doesn't have... I'm actually just not going to talk about AA and airstrikes because we have a lot of ships to get through. This ship is relatively quick at least, but not very maneuverable. And a 12-kilometer concealment is fine, but it's really not all that impressive here. Keep in mind, this ship actually does not get the engine boost and spotter plane together, so you have to choose engine boost or spotter. 18.6 kilometer range at tier 9 is fine, but we get ourselves into tier 10 super ship games a lot as a tier 9 these days, so then it really is a ship that I think wants to run spotter aircraft. As I pretty much refuse to give up reload mod on this ship. You could go range, but a 25-second reload with these guns just is miserable. So I do find myself giving up that little bit of speed boost and giving myself a little bit more comfort into those up tiers. We do at least get ourselves a Hydro, which is nice to have as well. And our repair is just a standard one. Build-wise, pretty basic standard build here. You know, getting some HP and then a little bit of reload here. If you're running this in something like ranked, and this is going to be true for all these battle cruisers, a main complaint of mine is that the battle cruisers don't have as much alpha as battleships, but they get the inconsistency of battleships. And outnumbered gives you better dispersion, and that can help. But in randoms, it's very hard to proc this because you have to have more enemy ships visible within your gun range than you have friendly ships visible in your gun range. So very difficult in randoms, but in those smaller game modes where you can flank a little bit more, that could be a really good option for you. But Carnot, just too expensive, and there are better options at the tier 9 battlecruiser slot for coal that this one's just really not all that good, and that's why it's the last one, number 9 for me personally. Moving on here, number 8, this is the Tulsa. I'm actually not going to fully hate on every battle cruiser. I'm sure you thought that was what was coming, all the battle cruisers at the bottom, but no. Tulsa is actually a ship I would not get at all. This is a ship that gives up some DPM compared to Buffalo, which is not really all that known for DPM. In exchange, you get the Des Moines turret layout, but you get 1 less gun per turret. So you have 6 guns on this cruiser, and the reload is a little longer than Des Moines, actually. I find the reload here is to be a pretty massive problem. You just don't have the damage to deal with a lot of threats at your tier. It's fine-ish against tier 9, but against higher tiers, it just takes forever to kill almost anything. This ship also doesn't really have any armor to write home about if we just enable it all again. 27 is not great. You're only going to be auto-bouncing 380mm guns, which most ships at these tiers have larger caliber than that, so the overmatch will be getting you. Less range than a Des Moines as well. Your hit points are not great either. No super heal here or anything like that. Your speed and maneuverability is fine, and your concealment's actually really good. I am running a build without all the concealment, as I found myself really enjoying this rudder shift plus propulsion mod build. We still get 10.5 kilometer detect. You know, if you feel like it, you can run concealment and get, I think, 9.5 kilometers, which is really good. You need to run reload mod on this ship. It just already lacks a lot of DPM, and 6 guns, dispersion wise, a little rough at times. So I need to just be bursting out more shells. Fortunately, the ship still gets a 42-second radar duration if we take radar mod, and I don't know if I have the commander skill for it. I don't. So you get even longer. The radar duration is a long time, which is nice, but I found myself even struggling to kill DDs some of the time within that full radar duration, just kind of how the guns go. And repair-wise, only getting 3 with this build, maybe a little too greedy, but I found Survivability Expert a little more important. And I really wanted to buff up the damage, so top grade gunner here, very useful, as well as heavy AP shells. So I've been hating on these guns a little bit, but you do get that very nice Des Moines AP, the improved pen angles. It is all here, so very, very strong AP. I think farming with HE is a little bit tougher, but the main reason I'm going with this steering gears as well as propulsion mod is you just have to dodge shells. You just have to. There's no bouncing, anything like that here. This ship is small, but not compact, I would say. It's very easy to get overmatched and slapped by a lot of battleships, especially with your lack of range. So a lot of compromises here with this one. At least you do get good firing angles. Facing forwards, you do have like a 30-degree firing angle, but when you're kiting, these front guns over your shoulders is like a 25-degree angle, so that's kind of nice. But the real problem with Tulsa is that it's not a Des Moines at tier 9. It is worse than that, so I really don't enjoy it all that much. And I think that's going to be its biggest issue. If it got a little reload buff, maybe, but it's pretty close, but not all the way there, and I wouldn't be interested in really getting it, as Des Moines is a ship you can get for free by just playing the game a little bit, and is much, much better, and the matchmaker, at least right now, tier 9, a lot of times is similar to tier 10 matchmaker these days, so I'd much rather be playing a Des Moines. Up next, we have the Agir at 7, so I did put this above the Tulsa, but only just barely, because Agir has a battlecruiser dispersion problem as well, but at least this one can be a good time when you get into a brawl. I really do enjoy brawling, close range gameplay. Agir struggles at range a little bit, but at least you have the main gun reload over a Carnot, for example, so we are a little bit better there. Our HE alpha is very low, so that's kind of a massive issue here. At least it's got good pens. You're going to get good pens, but yeah, the alpha is pretty low. You want to be using AP in this ship. You want to be flanking with this ship. And anytime there's a brawl or any sort of close range engagements at tier 9, you're going to be having a good time because you do get torpedoes, unlike a Carnot, for example. So they're the close range German torps. You're probably used to them, but it's very useful in a brawl. This armor is very dedicated to that closer range engagement as well. 90 mil upper belt, very nice to have. So many cruisers are going to be spamming HE at you, and it's just going to shatter all of that. It is glorious. Although if you take AP hits, this basically guarantees full pens. There is no overpenning this ship. It guarantees full pens, so you got to be a little bit worried about that. But angling it at close range means battleships will be auto-bouncing off of this as well with their AP. It's a really nice close range ship. if it weren't for the totally exposed bow and stern. 27 mil here, so against anything with 380 millimeter guns and below, you're going to be laughing, right? You're basically a battleship against them. But anything with larger caliber guns than that, this is a bit of a pain point, because this is a slightly above water citadel and a massive overmatchable bow. So you will be taking citadels at closer ranges, which is where this ship wants to play. If people know where to aim, it's pretty rough. You do at least get yourself a bit of a turtleback here, which is nice to have. And this one at least does actually function. It's not just going to get overmatched by battleships, but you can't rely on it all the time. I don't think this is a ship like a GK, for example, Preussen, that the turtleback is so good that you're just not really getting citadeled at all at close range, even if you go broadside. This one's not quite as good. You can still get citadeled, although it is less likely thanks to that turtleback. The reason it's less good at range is that plunging fire at range. That's why the armor here is not as good. 30 mil armor now. So you are going to get overmatched by less, but still quite a few battleships at these higher tiers. So it can be a little bit rough to play. Again, I'm not a fan of just battle cruisers in general. They kind of bring that inconsistency from battleships that I dislike about the battleship class, and they remove the consistency of cruisers, which I like about the cruiser class, without bringing the utility of cruisers along, right? There's not a radar here, for example, and they don't bring the tankiness and toughness of a battleship that allows you to just brute force brawl your way into people, and they bring the weaknesses of cruisers, which is that armor profile a little bit. So there are strengths, of course. They bring some of the strengths of each class as well, but for me, the weaknesses of each class shine a little brighter to me compared to the strengths of those other classes that get combined into these battle cruisers. That's just my personal opinion on it, though. A lot of people love this battle cruiser subclass, but for me personally, not a huge fan. That's why Agir drops here at 7. Up next, we have the Azuma, and this is going to mean every single tier 9 is at the bottom of my list. Now, if you're going for a premium to make credits, the tier 9s should be at the top of your list because they will make more credits. If you don't have very many premium ships in the game and you want to get something as your first or second premium ship, go for a tier 9. Tier 8 or tier 9 is going to be the way to go. The way the credit multiplier system works is that the tier 9s, every premium and special ship, and you're going to notice the difference here actually. Notice how this one here has a white icon surrounded by the gold laurels, I guess. And this is a gold icon surrounded by the gold laurels. The totally gold one, that's a premium ship. The white surrounded by the gold, that's a special ship. The only difference, at least as far as I can remember, is that the totally gold ones, the premium ones, get a credit multiplier, and the special ships, which are these ones here with this white icon, do not. So they won't make as many credits. However, they both retain a lot of the nice features of a premium ship, which is the commander retraining them. You don't have to retrain anytime you want to change your commander out, right? If I want to just throw another commander on, totally free. Don't have to charge at all for that, which is really nice. That's a really nice benefit of premium ships. They also have reduced repair costs and forgetting probably some other stuff, but those are the main ones. Reduced repair costs, commanders retrain for free, and if it's a premium, you gain that credit multiplier as well. So that's why the tier 9 and tier 8 premiums tend to make more credits than a tier 10 special ship. And you'll notice all the tier 10s are that special ship idea. But for me, I have a lot of credits in this game. This is a press account, so it's just got unlimited resources. But even my main account has effectively unlimited credits, so not interested in that as much. But if you are, keep that in mind. But for me personally, Azuma here falling at 6 is because Yoshino's just better, right? This ship is very good still, though. I was surprised a lot by these Japanese battle cruisers. I've been not a fan of battle cruisers, as you know, even in this video, kind of been hating on them a little bit. But these Japanese ones have very powerful HE. This HE absolutely slaps people. Good fire chance, but amazing alpha damage. And the consistency of that was really, really nice. I really loved that, to have it in these passive tier 9 up-tiered into super ship games, especially Yoshino with its insane range, right? This one doesn't quite have the range, but even Azuma could make it work. And that was what I found really nice, where the Carnot and the Agir just did not have the HE. Carnot specifically with just abysmal reload, And Agir, just the HE alpha was so poor that it didn't feel all that impactful. Azuma and Yoshino felt very, very powerful in this regard. So I liked it a lot, and I enjoyed the Azuma quite a bit. The build is like this, again, not really going for the range builds. I want that reload, but at least we get the spotter plane on this one, which is really nice to have. And our range starting at 19 is just fine. 13.7 detect sounds pretty bad compared to Agir and Carnot. But then you realize we're taking heavy HE because it hits so hard, man. It's so nice. And then the eye in the sky on this one, I won't take that on Yoshino, but on this one I will because that range isn't quite enough. Now, a very special feature of the Azuma here is your heals are like the Ohio and Massachusetts heal, where you get a 40-second reload, not the standard 80 seconds. So that's something that it has over the Agir, Carnot, and even Yoshino as well. So even though this ship, as we're going to see here, has worse armor, especially than Yoshino, 27 here, 25 on the bow, it's large, it takes a lot of damage, you can heal it back very, very quickly, which is what saves this ship. We don't have torpedoes, but the guns here are very, very nice on the Azuma. So if you're looking for a nice, chill, long-range HE spammer like I looked at in the Yoshino and Azuma videos respectively, but you want more credits, I think you go Azuma. If you don't need the credits as much and you just want the more powerful and more comfortable ship because Yoshi range and extra reload is very nice, I would get the Yoshino over it. But that's why Azuma fits here, and that's why all the tier 9s are at the bottom for me personally. We already talked about that, but just going to state it again so it's very clear. Now, on to the tier 10s. Top 5. Moskva sits in at 5, and that's because this ship has been power crept. Petro is just so much better. Stalingrad more interesting, and Moskva just kind of falls by the wayside here. This ship was a very powerful tier 10 cruiser, used to be the Tech Tree tier 10, and then was replaced when they split out to the Nevsky and Petro. So this one became a coal ship, which is fine. I wouldn't be interested in getting it, though. I probably should put it lower down, honestly, but Moskva can be a fun ship to play. I would probably rather play Moskva than a lot of those tier 9s, though, to be honest with you. It does have some nice benefits. The range here is nice. The armor here is much better. The utility it brings is way nicer. The accuracy is amazing with the legendary upgrade, but you don't have to take that. I ran some reload and range builds in the dedicated Moskva video that you will be able to see if you check that one out. It's all in the same playlist, by the way. And it's a nice ship to have. It's just been power crept by some of the Tech Tree counterparts. The other problem is the ship is kind of large and takes a lot of damage. There's no fire prevention anymore on the commanders for the cruisers, so being a large cruiser, you do take quite a bit of fire damage. People are going to try and HE spam you out, so you do have to be a little bit worried about that, and you do get overmatched. At least there is Icebreaker here. This is kind of the first of that we're going to be seeing, so at closer ranges, you won't be just overmatched citadeled by battleships. But you do have to be very, very careful when you're kiting, as this is a very large weak point to be overmatched. You can take a lot of damage there as well. The 50 mil plating, though, is great against HE and armor piercing if you stay angled. The problem is if you get caught broadside at all. This is a, 2016 style Citadel. The game was very, very, very different back in the day when I started playing. And everybody had much bigger citadels, much easier to hit citadels. People got punished for playing poorly more often. So this is a bit of a weakness here for sure. This is a gigantic citadel to have. Original Moskva, in case you didn't know, actually didn't have Icebreaker. So you were angling, and if you got close, well, battleships would just go right through your bow into this size of a citadel. Yeah, but even with that buff to the armor here, giving it an Icebreaker, I still don't really enjoy playing Moskva that much, so that's why you don't see me play it all that often. But it can still work quite well. I mean, the damage output from these guns is actually very, very good. The shell grouping is amazing. The alpha damage is pretty solid on both the armor piercing and the high explosive. No improved pen angles here. Petro gets improved pen angles on the AP. None of that here, but still, the shell velocity and the alpha damage, the pen is very, very good here as well. No fancy 360 turrets here compared to Petro, and the turrets turn a little bit slowly as well. But the range, shell velocity, makes it very easy to hit targets. 12-kilometer radar brings a lot of utility as well. Now for number 4, we got the Salem, and Salem is a ship I love playing, so you might be surprised to see it here. and that some of the other ships that I maybe don't like quite as much as Salem are above it. And that is regarding the order in which I would get these ships, right? Salem is basically a Des Moines, but slightly worse in my opinion, actually. I think it's a little bit worse than Des Moines. I think the Super Heal is fun, but I don't think it brings as much to the table as a Des Moines does. The lack of the radar being a 10-kilometer radar down to 8.5, bit of a weak point there. You can't slot hydro and radar at the same time, so you're pretty weak into torps and especially submarines, unfortunately. And this Super Heal, while very good, once you get through about 2 Super Heals on this ship, suddenly you've taken enough permanent damage, unhealable damage, that your Super Heal isn't all that useful on the 3rd and 4th potential charges. So that's where the gimmick here, the downsides of the worse radar and the gaining of this Super Heal isn't as much as it looks like it is on paper. I would just generally prefer to take a Des Moines. That's kind of how I would prefer to play it. However, this, is a pretty standard build here, but you can go a full lighthouse, no concealment, 15.5 kilometer detection, 15.8 kilometer range. Very scary build to play, but then a Super Heal is very useful for when you take those massive, massive hits, when you're playing that aggressively and that dangerously. It's very useful to do that. So if you're looking to play a Des Moines as a crazy lighthouse, insane DPM build, then I would take Salem over a Des Moines, actually. But that's kind of the one use case I can see in just regular gameplay. There are certainly reasons to take Salem over Des Moines in competitive games, but this is more focused on random battles and maybe some ranked as well. Generally, prefer a Des Moines, which is a free ship that you can just earn by playing the game, so that's why Salem falls a little bit on this list. Alrighty, now on to the top 3. This one is pretty good, Brisbane. Not as big a fan of it compared to like a Des Moines, for example, but Brisbane is unique, and that is something I haven't talked about yet, but there are good reasons to get certain ships on these lists when it comes to coal, steel, research bureau, just because they offer a very unique playstyle. They're different. And certainly there are plenty of ships on these lists that play very similarly or almost identical to Tech Tree ships. And then for me, they get lower down. Anything that's unique, I can rate higher just because it is bringing something new to the game. This is going to be a Minotaur with a 12-kilometer radar with high explosive. That is what this ship is, which is pretty nice. You don't get the smoke here, unfortunately. You still retain that Super Heal, which is nice, but a 12-kilometer radar doesn't last too long. You do give up some reload here, 4.4 second reload, even with the build here. So your DPM isn't as good as a Minotaur is, but you do get the HE in return, which is very nice for consistency's sake. And you guys know, I do enjoy consistency. The problem is playing Radar Minnow is just difficult in general, so I wouldn't recommend this as like a very beginner-friendly ship. Gigantic citadel, overmatched everywhere by battleships. Battleships will always target you over maybe even a target they should be shooting at anyways, just for the potential full health dev strike that you will offer because your citadel is so gigantic. So you're going to take just more focus fire in general. But there's a lot of utility to bring with the Brisbane, and it is a fun playstyle. The other thing that this ship gains over, say, a Minotaur is these torpedoes. They do actually much more range than the Minotaur here. So 13.5 versus 10 on the Minotaur makes them more comfortable to use, much better at kiting away on an off flank, applying pressure there. Very, very powerful at stalling a flank. Your detection is very good as well. It's nice to see. Build-wise, pretty basic, but running some torp build can be useful. There's not a lot of ways to buff these guns too much here, as getting so close for top grade is maybe not the most recommended thing in the world. And we still want our concealment, so I don't really want to go heavy HE. I could run IFHE though. That is something I could look to do because 30 mil pen is good enough for most things, but anytime you want to farm battleships with high explosive, so nice to have 32 mil pen, just giving you more of that raw HE damage, although it does come at the cost of your fire chance. So Brisbane, bit of a hardship to play, but very unique, and that's why it's at number 3. Now on to the number 2 spot. So you probably know what's number 1 now, but that probably isn't much of a surprise. What is a surprise is Yoshino. Bit of a dark horse in this list, I gotta say. typically haven't enjoyed Yoshino all that much. Thought it's boring, kind of lame, insane range, HE spam. And I actually found myself enjoying it a lot. I really, really had a good time with Yoshino. If you haven't seen the video, definitely recommend you go check it out. But the reload here being a little bit better as a battle cruiser here than the 20-second base reload. The extra range is amazing. You have battleship range. You can just, you know, when all the battleships are just chilling at 20 kilometers, trading AP salvos at each other, and you're sitting there as a cruiser like, wow, I have 18 kilometers of range, and there's nothing I can do, because as soon as I shoot, well, they're all going to just shoot at me because I'm 2 to 3 kilometers closer than all my battleships clumped up in the back. And what do? Well, Yoshino just has battleship range. So you're chilling back there as well, man. It's such a relaxing ship to play. I was shocked how much I enjoyed this thing. And the guns are strong here. They're very, very strong. The HE still very powerful, just like the Azuma, but you get that better reload. The AP can absolutely slap as well. And you get torpedoes on this one as well. 20-kilometer torps, bit of a meme, but you can throw them out as zoning torps. Fortunately, these days, you can't hit your teammates and damage them anymore. That was a bit of a bad side of having a Yoshino on your team before, but now that is not the case. You could run 12s, but I think the ship tends to play a little further back, so even though it's difficult to get value out of 20s, you can at least be firing them, pretending like you're going to hit something, whereas the 12s, well, you're probably just not within range most of the time, as this ship just doesn't have the armor to play at closer ranges. You're not that tanky. You have 30 mil armor, which is better than Azuma, but you don't have that nice fast heal cooldown, so you have to be a little bit careful in regards to that anytime there's 30 mil overmatch. But you're going to be killing that 30 mil overmatch very quickly. This thing absolutely murders battleships. It is very, very nice to play. Your speed's pretty good to flank around, reposition, and detection is fine because, again, we have that heavy HE, so getting that huge, huge alpha damage. Yoshino is fun, man. Again, this is probably the one where you get Yoshino if you want the better ship, and you get the Azuma if you want more credit income. These still make good credits thanks to the reduced repair costs of the ship, but you don't get that credit multiplier on top of that as well, since this is just a special ship, not a full premium. And at last, here we are, the best coal cruiser. Not much of a surprise, Napoli is insane. This ship is so powerful. It's very easy to use, and it kind of just runs the meta wherever it's at. It's great in random battles, and it's probably its weakest in random battles. In ranked, in clan battles, in brawls, anytime you see one of these things, you're like, okay, how do I kill it? Well, how do you kill it is very difficult. The armor is very, very strong. There's a bit of overmatch here. There's not a very large superstructure. There's an icebreaker. It's very, very difficult to kill this thing. It does have a turtleback, 30 mil, so battleships can overmatch that at least, but it's still not the easiest thing to Citadel. You'd think it would be, just based on the Citadel being this high, but as a battleship player, even playing battleships that overmatch 30 millimeters of armor, it still just doesn't take Citadels when it's broadside all the time. It should, and it mostly should, and it does, but it doesn't always. It's a very weird ship that just doesn't die. It's essentially like a Petro, but then you give it secondaries, man. You give it the best secondaries in the game. I don't think it's either Schlieffen or Napoli. And I would probably lean to Napoli because you have the smoke utility as well, which we'll get to. But yeah, 11 kilometers of range on fast reloading sap secondaries. And you don't really have to spec for it because cruisers don't have really many secondary skills. They have 2. Top grade gunner give you a bit of reload and a little bit of range here from Pack-a-Punch. That's it. There's no manual secondaries. So where battleships have to farm up some secondary time on target before they actually get accurate secondaries, it's just insta with Napoli. It's like old secondaries where you come around the corner as a DD, there's a Napoli 6 to 10 kilometers away from you. Instantly the secondaries are accurate and are hitting you. There's no lead time. There's none of that nice warning system or warm-up system that battleships now have as a destroyer player, as a cruiser player. There's time to go dark. There's time to get out of the line of fire of those secondaries. Not so with the Napoli. And the sap just does so much damage, pens so much. It's very, very strong, and as a player, you don't have to control them. it feels a little bit like you're losing to the AI when you're playing against a Napoli, which isn't great. But as the person playing it, it's kind of hilarious to just let them fire off and you're just killing things left and right. You do have some torpedoes here as well. Decent range, decent damage with Pack-a-Punch. Keep in mind that the alpha damage is much lower without that. And torp speed pretty low as well. But hey, that's nice to have. Our speed is really good as well. Detection here is not even running a full conceal build, by the way. I'm actually getting a little bit greedy for it as I'm taking outnumbered here instead. Typically, I'm not playing Napoli in randoms. I don't really have as much interest in that, but ranked season, brawls, that kind of thing. And then, like I said with some of the battle cruisers earlier, you can proc outnumbered very easily in some of those smaller game modes. And that extra dispersion is nice to have, as that's a problem with this ship. If you run the secondary build, which probably you are, as that's really the fun, interesting thing about this ship, is to just full send it in with the secondaries, you lose out on some main gun accuracy here. So outnumbered giving us a little bit of that back, but even still, the weak point of these guns are that they're not very accurate and they have a longer reload. So if you're comparing it to, say, a Castilla, which looks the same but has much worse armor, that ship gets much more accurate versions of these guns. So it's not like a Castilla where the accuracy's there and you get all the tankiness and all the secondaries and the smoke. No, the guns are not a very strong point of this ship. Not great range either, but man, everything else about it is insane. And you get a smoke. You just get that get out of jail free card. Oh no, I overpushed, or oh no, someone actually did a little bit of damage to me. Let me pop my smoke that lasts 50 seconds. Oh, and by the way, your secondaries can just fire out of that smoke as long as things are spotted, and you're not going to get hit in return. And your smoke fire penalty is like 8? Yeah, 8.8. So you can stealth fire secondaries. You can stealth fire your main guns. It's very absurd. Honestly, like just to be honest here, Napoli needs a nerf, okay? I don't think that's like probably the coldest take ever, but Napoli needs a nerf. But in the meantime, until it does, Napoli's just insane, man. Clearly the #1 pick, and obviously the one to go for. The reason not to get it, though, is if you're not interested in secondary brawling ships at all, and you'd rather go with something like a Yoshino for longer range gameplay, or you're looking for more utility, where you should go with Brisbane. But those top three, all very good options. For me personally, though, Napoli just the clear favorite. And that's going to do it. Finally through the coal cruisers here. Now we got to decide if I'm going to go with battleships or with destroyers. But we're going to go on to whatever the coal battleships or coal DDs are. You can comment down below about that. I'll be looking through, seeing what you guys want to see next. I think some people in the stream were leaning towards coal battleships, so probably see that soon. But hey, if a lot of you want to see the DDs first, I can easily pivot to that anyway. So here it is. Napoli first, Yoshino second, Brisbane third, then Salem, Moskva, and then all the tier 9s, Azuma, Agir, Tulsa, and Carnot. If you're interested in making more credits, definitely have a more priority look at the lower tier, tier 9, and in other lists, tier 8s as well. But if you're just looking for the stronger ships, definitely go with the higher tier ones, I think, just because tier 9, it so often gets pulled into super ships these days, and the tier 10s are just much better at dealing with that. But I think that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.